Part 31. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 302. Of course, size does not mean combat effectiveness. Although it is so huge, its combat effectiveness may not be comparable to Dave Filoni's flying stick aircraft or the small flying saucer that was mostly swallowed by Jiayan. Otherwise, why did this aircraft not show its combat effectiveness in the fierce battle that day? Bang bang bang. The sound of the metal door closing at the rear resounded in the air that was regained. After passing through two metal doors, Jiayan returned to the core area of the base. But entering this place, Jiayan was stunned. In the core area, which was originally flat and almost devoid of anything, suddenly appeared several large and small metal tables, and on these tables, there were things like electronic screens. In the center of a huge metal table, there are seats suitable for ordinary human sizes. In front of it is an operating metal table with many buttons and operating levers. However, this chair and metal table are a bit too small for Jiayan. He stepped forward and with one force of his front foot, he broke the chair and swept it aside. This console was obviously what appeared after he pressed the buttons outside. Jiayan saw the gaps on the ground and immediately knew where they appeared from. It doesn't matter how they appeared, as long as Jiayan knows that this is the control station of the huge flying saucer. I wonder if there is any identity verification thing. There are so many buttons, it's overwhelming. I wonder if I can operate them. Jiayan tried pressing the control buttons in the center. Anyway, at this moment, the huge flying saucer was in this unreachable place, and he was not afraid of hitting anything. In fact, the Asta civilization is easy to understand. As I said before, some of the technologies on Earth are very similar to the civilization. In other words, this Asta civilization may have been in the history of technological progress on Earth. It plays some role in some way. So Jiayan looked at the things on the main console. You can understand it? The operating lever here is something like an airplane operating lever. And those buttons have special functions, even if you don't understand the specific operation methods. But looking at the symbols and arrangement of some buttons, one can easily imagine their functions. Instead of thinking so much, why not give it a try? Jiayan was directly in front of the row of buttons that emitted a faint light. He knelt down. For him, this console was really small enough. Fortunately, be careful with the knife-shaped horns on the two front feet. I can still press those buttons quickly. Jiayan showed that he tried the operating lever, but was unable to start it. He guessed that it might have a function similar to putting a car into gear. So keep experimenting on the dashboard and levers. Maybe the people of Osto never thought about it. There would be an intelligent species that was so ignorant of their civilization and couldn't understand the words on the dashboard. Trying to start their flying saucer thing, so their design is very awkward for Jiayan. But he has time. Except for those buttons that are obviously not related to operations and do not press them, try the other buttons one by one. In fact, if it is a regular aircraft, there may be many restrictions, but this half-disabled aircraft obviously has many functions that experts have seen before. In other words, as a survival function, it can be piloted by anyone. So after Jiayan fumbled for a while, he only felt that he was pressing a few buttons and then moving the operating lever. Suddenly, he felt that his body swayed backwards. Moved. And this is Nima's aircraft with no power cover capability at all. Jiayan was almost pulled backwards by the inertia just now. It moved, and it made him understand better how streamlined this seemingly huge aircraft was. When he was riding in Daphne's flying stick aircraft, he could hardly feel the acceleration. However, when this aircraft just moved forward a little, he was almost knocked down. No wonder there was something like a seat belt on the chair he broke off just now. It seemed that the design of the aircraft's power cover system had no effect at all, or it was simply streamlined. But no matter what, such a huge aircraft was still moved by Jiayan. Haha, Great, even if it is just an aircraft with extremely poor performance, it is still an aircraft after all. Maybe I can really drive it back to Earth. Just thinking about it, Jia Yan felt excited in his heart. He has had enough of staying in this place. If he could return to Earth, he couldn't wait. But Jia Yan knows that he can't eat hot tofu in a hurry, so he can't be anxious. At least now, he needs to figure out what kind of power this aircraft uses, and whether the power is enough. If it lacks power and breaks down halfway, or even shuts down the life support system, it will be a suicide. There are also those metal machines that were thrown away in the war. Their production technology is not comparable to ordinary metal monsters. Jia Yan feels that he needs to search in the starfield space to see if he can find it. Something useful. Just do it. After Jia Yan was reborn, he was already very powerful. Now that it was about his return to Earth, he naturally worked harder. With the previous impact, it was discovered that the aircraft had already sailed away from the previous place and had advanced at least 10 kilometers, and that was only a matter of a few seconds. It seems that it is not impossible to drive it back to the Earth. Jia Yan flew out of the aircraft. He was not driving smoothly for the time being and did not want to waste power. Although he did not know what energy the aircraft used, it was definitely not infinite. So save if you can. After he flew out of the aircraft, he used his brainwave power to push his body and swim in space. After several previous flights, he has gradually mastered this method of flying that does not require air, and has gradually fallen in love with this kind of flying. There is no resistance in space, and he can accelerate almost infinitely. Although he cannot experience the refreshing feeling of wind, the increase in speed still makes him very happy. Although it seems that he still needs training to reach such a fast speed, he can already foresee that one day he will be able to fly faster in space than in the air. By then, even if there are still only a dozen even with hours of activity time, you can fly a long distance. The big Mosquito is flying alone in the starry sky. In fact, flying in the universe is more lonely than flying on the Earth, because this place is really too empty, even if he feels that he is using the power of brain waves to move forward. The way is fast enough, but the surrounding scenery is almost unchanged. Neptune is still the same Neptune, and the twinkling stars are still the same stars. No matter the distance or angle, there is no change. Except for the huge aircraft that is getting further and further away, which can be used as a comparison for him to measure the speed. When not looking at the aircraft, Jia Yan even thinks that he is not moving forward. Fortunately, the substances in front gradually approached, letting him know that his flight was still effective. It didn't take much time to and Jia Yan found some of the mechanical bodies that were fighting in the universe. Some of these bodies were completely broken, while others looked basically intact. Jia Yan was even worried that if he passed by, the other party would suddenly start to attack him hard. But this doesn't seem to be happening. Not long after, he grabbed a broken combat machine with one of his front legs and picked it up. These machines are all small individuals. Although most of them are about 1 meter in diameter, they are insignificant compared to Jia Yan's current huge body of 10 meters. So not long after, he used a few long legs to fish out many mechanical corpses in space. Afterwards, Jia Yan transported them back to the aircraft. Although he didn't know what the use of picking them up was, some parts of these machines still gave him a faint feeling of attraction, which was enough for Jia Yan to make the decision to pick up Rags. And during this period, he also developed his ability to fly in the universe. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 303. After nearly 10 hours of work, Jia Yan finally collected most of the machinery into the aircraft. Several of them are machines from the Asta people. Their manufacturing style is very similar to that of Earth people's technological things. To put it bluntly, they are very effective in use, but they are not as beautiful in appearance. Jia Yan discovered that the explosion during the impact, The Osta people's machinery was less damaged, and those gorgeous and mysterious imperial machinery were almost all scrapped. Just after Jia Yan collected all these things, he found that he could fly in the universe very well. Although it seemed that the power of brain waves had reached a limit, even if he accelerated hard, he could only reach the fastest speed. It can reach speeds of 300 to 400 kilometers per hour. But in terms of controlling power, I am already quite familiar with it. At least it won't happen. The embarrassing situation of trying to fly to the left but flying to the right occurs. Of course, there are still some deficiencies in terms of precision, but this is not something that can be solved in a short while. At least now that I have the foundation, I can slowly improve the skill by exercising like water grinding in the future. Finally everything was done. Jia Yan didn't have any attachment to this Neptune. After all, he didn't want to come to this place in the first place. After that, he was restricted to the universe for 2 or 3 months, which was long enough. After all, it has only been just over half a year since he was reborn. After working so hard, Jia Yan originally thought about picking a meteorite or something in the Neptune planetary ring as a souvenir, but after thinking about it, he gave up the idea. I'm not a human being anymore. There's no use in picking up these things. Forget it. Thinking of this, Jia Yan directly used some of the aircraft operating methods he had mastered in the aircraft. When the operation started for the first time, he remembered turning on a huge blue switch. Then it seems that the power system is turned on. Then continue. He seemed to have pressed a button to release restrictions, and the aircraft seemed to vibrate, but it was not moving yet. Then push the operating stick to drive the aircraft forward or backward. It's actually not too difficult. Jia Yan continued to do this. The aircraft indeed turned on again. After several days of collecting the mechanical remains, I took the time to study the instrument panel of the aircraft. Jia Yan finally discovered that there were several data on the instrument panel of this aircraft that were very eye-catching. Because it is vaguely related to the technological things on Earth. So he was able to tell that one of them was a speedometer or something like that. There is also a progress bar. This progress bar is very slender and covers the lower part of the entire operation interface. During this period of time, Jia Yan keenly noticed that the progress bar had decreased slightly. It seems that he is the display tank of energy. And this motivation seems to be very powerful, even though Jia Yan carefully recorded the opening and closing of doors frequently in the past few days. As well as trying to operate the aircraft, the energy barely moved. I just don't know if the energy decrease can be slower if it is turned on quickly. Jia Yan didn't think he could replenish energy for the aircraft. He didn't even know what energy the aircraft used. Perhaps the energy obtained from the small flying saucer can play a role, but where can it be replenished? Jia Yan hasn't figured this out yet, so he'll leave it to be studied later. It's more important to return to Earth now. Okay. Now let's see how your flight speed and endurance are. Jia Yan operated the control stick. He fixed his stance, and at this time, he had completely released the restrictive buttons of the aircraft. Just after he is ready. Suddenly, the operating lever was pushed. He immediately felt that his body was turning backwards. This aircraft was not very good at blocking the overload force, so the sudden acceleration made Jia Yan feel that his retreat was against the wall behind, and the metal wall was shocked. There is a little dent. After all, the weight of the big mosquito is no longer comparable to that of ordinary humans, so his acceleration puts great pressure on the things behind him. However, this also proves that the speed of this giant flying saucer aircraft did not disappoint Jia Yan. Although this speed is very fast, it is definitely not as good as that flying stick aircraft. It only took 30 days to fly the distance from the Earth to Neptune. It can be said that it has to fly a distance of the diameter of the Earth in 1 second do it. Although it is already extremely fast, Jia Yan still doesn't think that the current speed can be compared with the speed of Daifuni's flying stick aircraft. Although he had been somewhat prepared, Jia Yan was still a little disappointed. But what happened next gave the big Mosquito's compound eyes a different light. That is this accelerated state that continues. A day passed, and the overloaded power Jia Yan felt did not change at all. Finally, after about a day and a half, he slowly felt that his body became less tense. It has been accelerating for a day and a half. I can't even imagine how fast it is at this time. Jia Yan looked at a window in front of him. This window popped up automatically when he was testing the operation a few days ago. He circled the operating table and turned his head to see the 180-degree view around the aircraft. The surrounding scenery didn't seem to have changed much, but Jia Yan knew that Neptune behind him was far away. Regarding the azure blue planet farthest from the sun, although it is still extremely beautiful when I think about it now, there are some bad things in my memory, so Jia Yan has no regrets about leaving him. So that's it? The purpose of continuing to accelerate for a day and a half is to prevent this aircraft without a gravity protection device from enduring excessive acceleration force. Otherwise, if it accelerates as fast as Daphne's flying stick, the people inside will not be protected. We'll all die directly due to the overloaded power. Jia Yan finally understood why the aircraft did not accelerate in one breath. Even if he pushed the control stick to the limit, it still took a day and a half to gradually reach this speed. The current speed, even if it is not as fast as Daphne's flying stick aircraft, is at least 3/4 of his. You know that is already extremely scary. If it is 1/3 the speed, it will take 3 months to return to the Earth, and 1/4, it will be 4 months. But this is just a theoretical speed. You know, Jia Yan has the biggest problem, which has not been solved yet. That means he doesn't know where the Earth is yet. Now he is just flying in the direction of the sun. To be honest, the sun is just a little brighter than other stars when viewed from Neptune. If Jia Yan hadn't been convinced that this was the sun, it might have been heading towards other bright stars. Fly away, maybe even fly out of the solar system. Fortunately, Jia Yan knew that he was not mistaken. After 5 days of continuous flight, the sun had already appeared slightly. It was no longer the feeling that it was a little brighter than other stars, but the real sun is gone. Stars are really magical things. In this universe, they can be said to be an extremely important part. Their brilliance can be seen in almost any star field in the universe. Not only do they have huge energy, but their bodies are also extremely terrifying. The sun in the solar system is just the most ordinary star among all stars. It is neither too big nor too small. Even its brightness and direction are quite average in this galaxy. It seems there is no conspicuous place. But inside this solar system, it is still an unimaginable behemoth. Not only is it huge, it also occupies 99.86% of the total mass of all matter in the solar system, which is all other planets, and the total weight of star matter is only 0.14%, the rest is the mass of the Sun. This behemoth that gave birth to the Earth and illuminated mankind seems to be extraordinary, but in the Milky Way, astronomers on Earth estimate that there are between 200 billion and 600 billion stars like the Sun. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 304. You know, the total population of human beings on the Earth is only about 6 billion. These 6 billion people have already burst out with extremely bright light of civilization, and in the entire galaxy, the number of stars like the Sun is far greater. It far exceeds the total population of people on Earth. In such a number of star systems, is life on Earth really the only one? The Sun is not unique, and the solar system with its planets is not unique at all. Even more than the Earth, the mother of mankind, there is nothing very magical about this galaxy. Some scientists on Earth, based on the Earth's environment, estimate that the number of advanced civilizations that may appear in the Milky Way at the same time as on Earth is about 2 million. And these 2 million are estimated based on the possibility of human evolution on Earth. If some intelligent life evolves in a different way from that of humans on Earth, the actual number of advanced civilizations may far exceed this amount. Therefore, it is not surprising at all that there is life in other star systems, and even intelligent life that far exceeds the civilization of the Earth. As for them not having contact with people on Earth, it may be just like the 3 civilizations that Defuni and the others are in. It's not that they don't have contact, but that there is no need. Even if we find the Earth, even if we see the existence of humans on Earth, is it necessary to contact it? People have seen many planets with life, and humans on Earth are just ordinary ones among them. If it hadn't been for the emergence of star condensation, perhaps these representatives of interstellar civilization would still be hidden in unknown corners. Apart from being occasionally witnessed while flying aircraft, they might remain so hidden forever. Enslave humans. As Daphne said, her empire is already very bloated and has no interest in this civilized planet far away from the empire. If you don't reach a certain level of civilization, maybe they won't even look down on you. In fact, if Jia Yan kept driving a huge version of the flying saucer and flew out of the solar system, he might be in the star system next door. Maybe we can find some intelligent life. Life is not that unique. But Jia Yan did no such thing. Even if he does this, at the speed of this aircraft, it may still take thousands of years to reach the next star system. Let's leave aside the question of whether there is enough energy. Jia Yandu definitely couldn't live that long. As mentioned before, the vastness of the universe. It's desperate. The sun in front of him slowly enlarged in his eyes, and Jia Yan watched the sun enlarge. He finally had some relaxation, even though he was a person who didn't know much about astronomy. I also know that if you drive in the wrong direction, it's no joke. Fortunately, the sun was getting closer, so he could relax a bit at this time. This aircraft should have an automatic flight mode. But Jia Yan couldn't understand so many messy words, so he chose the stupidest method. Directly driving the flying saucer can be said to be non-stop day and night. Fortunately, since his rebirth, his need for sleep has become lower and lower, although this time it may last for a long time. But when Jia Yan really couldn't bear it, he could stop the flying saucer and take a rest somewhere. The time for Jia Yan to return to Earth is still far away. But even when he mutated and started flying the flying saucer, there were also great changes in other aspects. This is a star system. Its main star is a star similar to the Sun, and this star system also has a Kuiper belt that is very similar to the solar system. If astronomers see this galaxy, they will know that this star system is the Epsilon Eridanus galaxy, which is only 10.5 light-years away from the solar system. Everything about this galaxy is very similar to the solar system, but its main star is much younger than the Sun. The Sun is about 4.6 billion years old, but the main star of this Epsilon Eridani star system is only 850 million years old. It's just age. Therefore, many astronomers are observing this star system. Looking at this star system that is very similar to the young Sun, they can draw conclusions about the changes in our solar system when it was young. However, in Epsilon Eridanus at this time, there is something that obviously does not belong to this young galaxy, flying through it. If Jia Yan could see his appearance, he would definitely be surprised. Because this is a flying stick aircraft similar to that, but the size is that of the flying stick aircraft driven by Daphne. It is completely impossible to compare. This is a technological object with a length of 2,000 meters, a long stick shape as a whole, but an extremely hard shell. Flames spurted out from behind him from time to time, constantly adjusting its direction. This huge thing was approaching a huge Earth-like planet at this time. The planet as a whole is a desolate gray-yellow color. Life should not have appeared on it, but now there are things of huge scale, constantly digging and mining on the surface of the planet. That's right. He is what Daphne said, an exploration ship of their empire. In just 300 years, they have set out from the Earth, mined and excavated several planets, and traveled to the Epsilon Eridanus galaxy. In the spaceship at this time, some strange-looking creatures were constantly wandering around. This is a creature similar to a big-headed monster. They also have limbs, but their heads are extremely huge, and their outer skin has a trace of wrinkles, which is not very beautiful. However, their technological strength is extremely powerful. Each of them has some very powerful-looking firearms. Some of the low-level beings only wear the kind of pistols carried by Daphne. Others carry weapons. Just by looking at the appearance, you can see that the two pistols owned by Daphne are completely incomparable. These big-headed monsters are very familiar in the universe. They use brainwave flight to fly continuously to complete their work. But while they were working, a strange message suddenly came to the spacecraft from a distant place. %U0026, 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 UN, UN. Some high-level aliens had a brief discussion after reading the information. Not long after, there was some movement in this huge aircraft. All the big-headed monsters working on it were concentrated towards the spacecraft, but the equipment completely stayed on the surface of the planet. They continue to mine. As for the huge spaceship body, it slowly turned its head. After that, the body kept accelerating, accelerating, and accelerating again. Compared to the flying saucer driven by Jiayan, his acceleration ability is definitely much stronger. Suddenly, under certain circumstances, his body disappeared into the visible universe. Again, his figure appeared in an extremely remote place hundreds of millions of kilometers away. This huge spaceship actually used an unimaginable flying method to fly extremely fast in space. Even close to the speed of light. His destination is a bright star not far away. Sun. Just about a dozen light-years away from this star, there was another huge thing that looked like a flying saucer, but had a diameter of 2 or 3 kilometers. Almost at the same moment, I received some signal. It also expanded its own speed and flew away towards the location of the solar system. The speed is actually not much slower than the flying stick. These two powerful things that cannot be predicted by technology are about to appear in the solar system. But even for them, the speed cannot exceed the speed of light, it can only be extremely close and cannot be reached. Therefore, it may take more than 10 years for them to reach the solar system. On Earth, more than 10 years is already a long enough time. Their primary enemy now is not these two things that take more than 10 years to reach, but those metal monsters that humans are almost desperate for. To deal with metal monsters, humans have racked their brains and have developed countless ways to deal with them. But in front of humans, there is always a hurdle that cannot be bypassed, and that is the kind of building made by metal monsters that can emit red light. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 305. If Daphne can still enter the Earth, she may explain to humans that these red lights are genuine Osta people's defenses, and the attack power is naturally not something that humans on Earth can stop. However, it is impossible for her to enter the Earth now. Even if she kills the representative of the Osta people, she still cannot enter the Earth, because the attack power of the metal monsters has been formed, and even the flying stick aircraft she pilots cannot enter the Earth. Come on. The situation forms a strange balance. Daphne's so-called empire power has been completely extinct on the Earth, and she herself cannot enter the Earth. As for the Oster civilization where the metal monster is located, because all the representatives of the civilization were killed by Delphine, it seems that it is unable to make clear judgments on its own, and can only repeat some unnecessary attacks and simple actions of self-protection. As for the humans on Earth, they had some breathing time because the metal monsters did not attack aggressively. There are even some unique plans that are gradually taking shape. However, in the face of powerful weapons that far exceed the human civilization on Earth, the strength of Earth people is completely useless. Fortunately, the metal monsters have not received orders to further exterminate humans, so it is impossible for them to take the next step. In several aspects, a balance was formed for a while and the situation was maintained. The flying saucer piloted by Jia Yan is still in the distant space, slowly approaching this battle situation that seems to be frozen. Has it been almost a month? In the 80-meter diameter aircraft, the big Mosquito crawled in front of the operating table boredly. After a month of operation, he finally gained some proficiency in operating the aircraft. Over the course of a month, he gradually relaxed his mind. In fact, he also thought about the so-called representatives of the Asta civilization who died in his base, and those metal monsters on the Earth. Even if there is no major chaos, there should also be a certain pause in the attack. After all, they are so-called mining machines, not real combat robots. If mining robots are so aggressive, then they are not used for mining, right? Think of this. His worries about the safety of Jia's family have finally diminished. Of course it was useless even if he worried. After all, no matter how hard he rushes, he can't get close to the Earth quickly. This aircraft is already fast enough, and Jia Yan can't even guess how fast he is now. Without a speed of tens or even millions of kilometers per hour, it would not be possible to approach the Earth so fast. Several million. This speed is already fast enough for Jia Yan. It's all a dream-like speed. It seems like an incredible thing. As for the flying stick aircraft driven by Daphne, he couldn't even imagine how fast it was. At least 3 or 4 times the speed he drove this ship. Simply incredible. If Jia Yan knew, there are now 2 huge spaceships. If it is approaching the solar system at a speed that is almost reaching the speed of light, it is not a matter of imagination. But it's impossible for Jia Yan to believe that such a fast aircraft appears. In fact, there are certain internal reasons why the 2 aircraft can be so fast, but there is no need to explain it now. At least they are approaching the Earth at a speed that is indeed close to the speed of light. After driving it for a month, I actually found that there is no need to do this, because if there is interstellar material in front of me, such as a meteorite, it will automatically alarm me. And in fact, there is far less interstellar material than I thought. So I can definitely go away and let him move on. After Jia Yan became familiar with flying, he understood that if he just walked away for a while, the aircraft could move forward on its own. So even if he still doesn't know how to activate the autonomous driving function, he can still walk away. Thinking of this, Jia Yan let go of the joystick a little uneasily. He didn't want to waste several months. And when he arrived on Earth, he also understood that it was still a fierce battle. Metal monsters are definitely difficult to deal with. If Daphne appears when he is fighting metal monsters, then he will still be a little bit more dangerous. After all, Jia Yan already knew that woman's fighting power very well. Even after this mutation, he didn't feel that his fighting power would be weaker than that woman's. His brainwave strength has reached the point where he can actually fight. Moreover, on the planet, his flying ability can also be greatly improved. This advantage is impossible for Daphne to have. But the biggest problem is that the opponent is not a creature that relies on its own body to fight. Not only does she have a variety of wonderful alien technological weapons, but she also has a very powerful flying stick aircraft. Jia Yan doesn't think that his flying saucer, which has no weapon system no matter how hard he tries, can compete with the opponent. So he still needs to improve. It's best to improve your strength to a level that even Delphine can't imagine. Jia Yan let go of the operation. He took out the papers that Daphne gave him. Perhaps the only good thing is that Daphne may have thought that he was dead that day, so the information she handed over was probably not tampered with much. Jia Yan was able to learn the above things through the materials she gave him. The first is the further utilization of brain waves. Jia Yan saw that on a few pages of paper, there were enhancement methods for the application of brain waves, and this was a conclusion drawn from some research on evolved beasts. He doesn't know at all whether he belongs to the category of evolved beasts. If he just follows the classification methods of those civilizations, it doesn't seem wrong. After all, they don't classify evolved beasts into a race, but a unique species. As for the devouring characteristic, Jia Yan fits this point. So he believes that this kind of learning material can be of some use to him. Evolved beasts have several powerful ways. One is that their combat power is extremely powerful, and their bodies are also very tough. This kind of evolved beasts are so powerful that even the main guns of the Empire's battleships are useless against them. Method. However, this kind of evolved beasts are only mid-level existences among evolved beasts at best. Their strength cannot be compared with the evolved beasts whose main power is brainwave power. With brainwave power as the main form of power, they can use that this kind of ubiquitous power can completely tear apart a battleship at a long distance. The powerful brainwave power evolved beast can even block the attack of the battleship with its brainwave power. What's even more terrifying are the evolved beasts that have both physical strength and brainwave power. They have both attack and defense capabilities, and can be used at both distance and distance. Among the evolved beasts, this kind of evolved beast is invincible, and it's possible to turn into a giant beast in the starry sky. Sex is also the biggest. Jia Yan looked at the records on the paper and slowly realized that if he wanted to become more powerful, the best choice would be to follow the evolutionary beast method where the body and brainwave power advance together. But he was also worried that if he chose the method of becoming stronger together, finding Shuyuan would affect his progress in becoming stronger. But thinking about it carefully, Jia Yan thinks not. His strong body has always been achieved by swallowing some strange substances. For example, in the records, those evolved beasts continued to cultivate their bodies. Except for the time when he was just reborn, he did such things. It has never been done before. Moreover, his body seems to be stronger due to devouring, which is a trait that other evolved beasts in the data do not have. For other evolved beasts, if they want to become stronger through devouring, they must at least go through a training process, but Jia Yan will get an extremely powerful body as soon as it is devoured, although subsequent training can also make the body further powerful. But compared to the powerful mutation obtained by swallowing, that little progress can be ignored. As for brainwave power, training seems to be more important in comparison. He can also get stronger brainwave power through mutation, and the improvement is also huge, but the progress obtained in training is not small. So Jia Yan made a plan. Regardless of his body or brainwave power, he doesn't want to give up, and he must focus his main attack on the brainwave power. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 306. Although there may be better training methods for the body, Jia Yan doesn't feel that his body can make much progress through training other than mutating again. As for brainwave power, the more he improves, the more great discoveries he makes. It seems that at his current level of brainwave power, he can make greater progress in his combat effectiveness through training. But it depends on how quickly he learns next. The way brainwave power is used in combat can almost all be regarded as a long-range attack. However, if used properly, it is also very good to use it as a defensive force. But the requirements for the user's brainwave power control are relatively high. Jia Yan looked at the article on the piece of paper. He gradually understood that using brainwave power to pronounce words in the air was just a superficial way of using it. In fact, the power of brainwave power was far beyond that. The power of brainwave power is not only reflected in attack and defense. Its speed is also at a level that physical competence cannot reach. If a user is skilled in the use of brainwave power, the speed of using brainwave power is almost it can reach the speed of brain operation. Some high-level combat professionals, their brain speed is dozens or even hundreds of times faster than ordinary intelligent beings due to long-term use. There are some starry sky behemoths with powerful brain waves, and their brain speed is incredibly close to the speed of light. And the fast brain speed will not only make their attack power and defense faster, but what's even more frightening is that the intelligence has also been greatly improved. Others can only think about one question in 1 second, and it is even impossible to finish a question, but a being with fast brain waves has already thought through a series of things. According to long-standing rumors, the being with the greatest brainwave power is a starry sky beast dominated by brainwave power. 50,000 years ago, it seemed to have appeared once in a starry sky far away from the Empire. At that time, this existence was almost. Use your own power to completely destroy a civilization whose level of civilization exceeds that of the Empire. There are rumors that the main advanced intelligent civilizations in the Milky Way starry sky are all descendants of that destroyed civilization. Of course, this kind of thing is just a distant legend. At least the scholars of our empire believe that the Empire is not the descendant of that civilization. Fortunately, we no longer see powerful brainwave starry sky beasts. Even in the Empire's long records, there are only 3 sightings of starry sky beasts. Jia Yan buried his head in the records on these pieces of paper. There is actually not much information to learn from, but Jia Yan is still fascinated by it. For him, this kind of thing is not only a disguised form of learning, but also a good material for determining his own path. Then let me do my own brainwave expansion exercises first. It is said that this kind of exercise is most useful for beginners. It also seems to be able to quickly master the deep effects of brainwave power. Jia Yan followed the words on the paper and started intensive exercises that were useful to him. It seems there are still more than 2 months until it reaches Earth. But in Jia Yan's opinion, this little time is not much at all, if brainwave strength training is on the right track. Probably 2 months is not enough. However, he still encouraged himself and tried his best to squeeze out his time. If he could make full use of his time, perhaps when he arrived on Earth, his brainwave power would make those metal monsters and Daphne appear next. Maybe a surprise. It's not like Jia Yan has never thought about using the remaining items from the small flying saucer to get an opportunity for the next mutation, but he knows that his body has only just undergone mutation, and there is still not enough foundation for the next mutation. After several recent mutations, it can actually be seen that the effect of the mutation is becoming more and more powerful, but the digestion time required is also getting longer and longer. It seems that Jia Yan's body has also begun to need an adaptation and absorption process. The process of mutating matter. His body no longer feels like it could continuously mutate when it was small before. Instead, after one mutation, it takes a period of absorption before the next mutation can occur. Therefore, Jia Yan no longer expects that he will be able to mutate immediately. It is impossible to reach the point of mutating again for at least 2 months. I hope that if I work hard to train my brainwave power, I can make a qualitative leap in 2 months. After all, beginners always make the fastest progress in anything. Jia Yan corrected his mood and tried his best to master the brainwave knowledge. Earth, a planet that once had a brilliant civilization, now has thick smoke rising from the surface. The appearance of these thick smoke is not as simple as humans cooking and making fire. Whose fireworks can burn so horribly that they can be seen in space? That's the flames of war. The smoke is filling the air, and the flames of war have spread everywhere on the Earth. Half a year has passed since the metal monster appeared on the Earth. Human beings on the Earth have begun to get used to it. That is the day when the Earth is no longer dominated by the Earth's people. Metal monsters seem to treat humans as playthings. They occasionally attack human cities. More often, they scatter and look for human figures hiding in the wilderness to attack. Facing such metal monsters, humans will not surrender so easily. At the moment of race survival, various tactics and legendary figures began to appear among the people. Just near Shanghai City, a small village has become famous. This is a village without a name. It is said that there are several humans who are accustomed to trap fighting. Their first victory was to defeat a fully equipped metal monster. Although the price they paid was relatively high, they completely protected their home. In the subsequent battles, their combat abilities were further strengthened. They also have some clues about the source of their arms, and they can always find the weapons that are most suitable for this village. In the subsequent battle, the village gradually showed its abilities. On the second hunt, he defeated 2 metal monsters. The third hunt, defeated 3 metal monsters. The fourth hunt actually eliminated a small army of 5 metal monsters. After 4 battles, the reputation of this village has spread nearby, and many humans have gathered here like a snowball. After all, a village has a strong combat power and can best protect the people. This village can even eliminate a small regular army of metal monsters. That is something that only a regular army can do. People naturally rush to this place. Being able to live for a while longer is just a period of time. This period is already full of chaos, and people without great power can only drift with the tide in this world. In a period of half a year, the entire human society has already become a survival of the strong. The bad nature of human beings that only manifests itself in chaotic times is fully reflected in this period. Fortunately, the village does not seem to be like this. While continuing to expand, his system is also gradually taking shape. Gradually, this village began to look less like a village and more like a larger town. Yesterday, more than 50 people came to our place. Among them were old people with farming experience and some plasterers. I took them all in, but I didn't take in a few former officials. One of them actually point at my nose and say I don't take the government seriously. A man with a full beard sat in a room with the lights on, smiling at the man wearing glasses on the other side. These 2 people are naturally the 2 who have become the absolute protagonists in the village. It can be said that they have unintentionally intervened. In a few months, the 2 of them actually opened up the situation and built a small village into an extremely strong castle. In this place, their words are an absolute power. The Geo family has also gained a certain status in this village. Although the distance between them and the 2 killers has gradually widened, they are still people who escape together. Regardless of whether the 2 killers are still with the so-called senior Chongwen is related, so he still treats them well. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 307. Forget it, those former government workers thought it was still the old days. The most indispensable thing now is people like them who are not strong in doing things and can only talk nonsense. You are right to get rid of them. And haven't we already connected with the Shanghai municipal government? With the Shanghai municipal government here, they can't make waves. The young man wearing glasses is sitting and reading some information about this village. He has definitely put in a lot of effort to make this village what it is now, so at this time, they no longer regard this place as a temporary place. It's a place to stay, but I really want to live here. Okay, don't look at this. In the past few months, we first connected to power, then restored communications, and then contacted the Shanghai municipal government. We have been busy enough, and now it is time to relax. Aunt Jia just found me and said that today is the Chinese New Year and she would like to go to their place for New Year's Eve dinner. I have already promised her, let's go. The bearded men snatched the information from the hands of the young people. Their combat effectiveness has dropped sharply in the recent battles. To maintain their status in the village, they mostly use their experience to teach the young men in the village. In addition to the battle, it is to use the knowledge and abilities of the 2 to create some benefits for the village. The village was once again electrified and a large number of crops were planted. Among other things, they personally set off to go to Shanghai City, which had been attacked by red light, to meet with the government, which had lost a lot of its population and only had half of its army. The relevant personnel had secret conversations and finally obtained a batch of supplies. As a result, the village has truly gotten back on track. What I'm looking at now is not a trivial matter. Look, the young man wearing glasses pointed at the information in his hand and said attentively. The bearded man looked at the young man's actions and knew that his expression was not fake, so he immediately looked at it intently. What he was pointing at was a map file from a special channel. In this file, the recent movements of metal monsters were marked. It is impossible for ordinary people to understand this kind of map, but the two of them are killers. There is still relevant knowledge. So after looking at the bearded man for a while, his expression became serious. It seems that the metal monster is planning another attack. He shook his head. It is obvious from the data that the metal monsters have begun to gather. Perhaps they are preparing to attack the Shanghai stock market again. Half a year. The metal monsters have assembled 3 times and launched a large-scale attack on the Shanghai Stock Exchange. The first time was the 20,000-strong army that shocked the world. That was the moment when Huaxia's new weapons showed their power. They wiped out an army of 20,000 metal monsters at once. They are also metal monsters until now. The most costly battle against humanity. After that, the metal monsters gathered twice more, once with an army of 10,000. However, their tactics seem to have been slightly adjusted for China's new weapons. Therefore, although it still failed that time, the Shanghai Stock Exchange's military strength was almost completely collapsed. If that gathering was still an attack by 20,000 troops, the Shanghai Stock Exchange may have been breached. The third time was the one a month ago. That time, only more than 8,000 metal monsters were gathered, but the impact caused almost directly destroyed the entire Shanghai stock market. This is also the reason why there have been more and more refugees in villages in Shanghai recently. In 3 battles, Shanghai's army caused a total loss of at least 35,000 metal monsters. This achievement is an extremely impressive achievement on Earth. However, this achievement does not guarantee the safety of the precarious city. On the contrary, more and more people are attacking the city because of several attacks by metal monsters. A kind of panic, fear that the next attack is coming soon. Therefore, recently in the villages around Shanghai, more and more urban center refugees have fled from the city. Many of them are former powerful people, but in order to survive, they naturally put down their dignity, but there are also some people with great energy, they themselves carry some armed personnel. In this dangerous time of war, they occupy some safe and hidden villages. Many people originally thought that the metal monster's next general attack would not start so soon. However, they did not expect that from the information obtained by the young man wearing glasses, the metal monster's next general attack was just around the corner. Forget it, if the metal monsters attack Shanghai, we can only pray that they don't discover us. If we are discovered, with our village, there is no possibility of resistance. The young man wearing glasses let out a long sigh, stood up, and walked with the beard to the house where the Geo family was. This remote village has undergone tremendous changes compared to before. Houses made of wood are rising from the ground. As the use of money becomes worse and worse, this village has gradually adopted more barter transactions. Even if people without any property come here, they can get materials as long as they put in a certain amount of labor. As long as they work hard, such as helping to build a house, or farming, etc., you can get things to survive. The Geo family is a unique existence among them. They seem to have a certain relationship with the 2 killers who lead the village, so they do not need to do some heavy physical labor like other people, but do some management. Something simple like that will do. Aunt Chia, we are here. On the night of New Year's Eve, the Geo family welcomed the 2 highest status people in the village. The house for a family of 3 is a brick house that was built in the village before. It is definitely much more comfortable than those houses that were built on the spot. The door opened and Geomu came out. The Geo family is very grateful to these 2 people who have always protected their family and taken care of their family during this period of war when it was extremely difficult for ordinary people to protect themselves. So she is very enthusiastic. Xiao Yao Pengxian is here. It's cold outside. Come in quickly, there's a stove inside. Everyone read it right, Pengxian is the name of the bearded man, his full name is Chen Pengxian. Because this name does not fit with his image of a big beard, so he has been forcing young people wearing glasses not to call him by his name as much as possible. However, after living in this place for a long time, his name gradually became known to everyone, but naturally no one dared to call them that. Except for the Geo family, most people called them Big Instructor and Second Instructor. Because in the beginning, they took over the affairs of the entire village in the name of training. Welcoming the 2 killers into the house, Jia's father, Jialin, and his daughter also had smiles on their faces. After all, they naturally have a very favorable impression of the savior who can save their family in danger. Even though the 2 killers kept emphasizing that they were entrusted by others, the person who was entrusted never appeared, and judging from the appearance of these 2 people, it seemed that they had lost contact with that person. However, they still take care of their Geo family. In the eyes of the Geo family, this is an even greater kindness. Suddenly, they all became like family. Haha, Geolin, you have grown up again, and you are now a girl. The bearded man had a look of emotion on his face when he saw Geolin. Unknowingly, he had been interacting with this family for more than half a year. The girl who looked like a junior high school student and was still going to Shanghai to help her brother get revenge has grown up in half a year and turned into a beautiful girl that many young boys in the village are chasing after. Geolin stood beside her parents, and she was indeed more energetic than she was half a year ago. She has always been a cute girl with baby fat, but in half a year, perhaps because she has experienced some ups and downs, her face has gained a touch of mature girlish charm. And she has always had a good figure. In this village with a population of several thousand people, she is definitely a first-class beautiful woman. So it's very eye-catching. After hearing the joke about the beard, Geolin used to blush shyly, but now she also knew that others were joking, so she just stood there, covering her lips that seemed to be much redder with her fingers, smiling happily. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 308. For this girl, her innocence has not completely passed. A few days ago, she even signed up for the village's combat team. However, she failed to pass the screening process controlled by Jia's father, and was severely scolded when she returned home. Fan. But no one knows what the real psychology of this little girl who still looks a bit innocent on the outside is like. Perhaps if others knew her true psychology, everyone might be surprised. The 5 people sat down at home, and the charcoal fire in the stove was burning brightly, raising the temperature of the small room to a very pleasant feeling. Jia's mother served the prepared New Year's Eve dinner. For people during the war, it was very rare to spend a New Year's Eve. Because with 2 killers, the Jia family could live such an easy New Year's Eve year. Therefore, even if they cannot repay the kindness to these 2 people now, they will always keep it in their hearts. Jia's mother's cooking is good, and the food on the table is quite delicious. But while the 5 of them were dining, sharp whistles sounded loudly. The 5 people were all shocked, and they all looked at each other. In the small village at this time, it would not be that simple if this whistle sounded, because this was the patrol team members outside their village, and they discovered dangerous sirens in the outside world. 2 long and 1 short. This is an alarm for the metal monster to attack. As an instructor who trains everyone, Bearded Beard understands the meaning of this whistle. Come on, let's go out and take a look. Uncle Chia, be prepared. If it's really a metal monster that's coming, we'll be back soon to help you escape." The young man wearing glasses took his coat and followed Luozi. Beard's footsteps rushed towards the outside world. The village is in chaos. Due to the recent expansion, there are thousands of people in this place, but these people are mixed. Some people had packed their clothes at this time and ran outside like crazy. Almost no one has a sense of identity with this small village. The appearance of the metal monster was originally an opportunity. When metal monsters appeared in the past, there were still people who escaped. The village could no longer accept such people. For two killers who valued credibility, they could not stand together through thick and thin. They are the last thing to see. The village is built in an area slightly higher than the flat land. There are 3 roads going down the mountain. However, there are almost shadows of metal monsters on the roads at this time. For a while, whistles came and went, and even the dogs acting as guards on the mountain screamed in terror. "Let's go. Let's go and take a look." The 2 killers led their temporary subordinates. Compared with the private escape of the newcomers, their subordinates were all composed of men who had been in this village from the beginning. Not only have they experienced many battles, but they also have a strong sense of identification with the village. So they didn't panic and rushed toward an intersection with the 2 killers. When they arrived, the intersection was full of panicked shouts and screams. Humans who wanted to escape in this direction were chased by several metal monsters, and red rays of light shot out to kill them all. Shot. Seeing this scene, the young man wearing glasses gave the order without hesitation. The people around them all had calm faces, and they pulled the trigger without hesitation. These people all owned some weapons, and some of them were even equipped with weapons that were no worse than those of the regular army. There are more than 50 people in total. This is the most powerful armed force in the entire village now. For a village, this kind of armed force is actually enough. But that's just for general defense, if the opponent is replaced by a metal monster. Even more armed forces are not enough. And the current situation is so desperate. Just when the young man wearing glasses gave the order to shoot, behind those metal monsters, one after another, like locusts, came out from behind the bushes. Their number is huge, under the light. The reflected light makes people dare not look directly at it. Suddenly there were at least 50 metal monsters in front of them. It would not be difficult for this number to wipe out their village. What's more, there are metal monsters on the other 2 roads. These monsters are obviously organized when they attack the village on the top of the mountain. Today happens to be New Year's Eve, so it would be really unlucky to kill them on this day. Retreat while shooting. Don't mess up. As soon as the 2 killers saw the situation, they knew that today would not be an easy day to get through. This New Year's Eve would probably be bad for this village. Bang 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 bang. The gunshots were loud, and each bullet was like a shining star in the night sky. Sparks splashed down and hit the body of this wave of metal monsters. The tinkling sounds continued, and the bodies of these metal monsters were naturally not easy to penetrate. However, their bodies were not heavy enough, so they were hit backwards by the powerful kinetic energy of the bullets, giving the escaping people an extra chance of escape. Opportunity. However, the number of metal monsters is about the same as the human gunmen here, so it is impossible for all of them to be blocked by bullets. More than 20 of them were not attacked at all. 4 long legs moved towards humans. These teams, trained and organized by 2 killers, are called combat teams in this village. This is a fighting force composed of young people no more than 30 years old. They run extremely fast, but because of there are also some ordinary villagers here. In order to protect them, they must stay behind. When the 2 members of the combat team met for the first time, they were knocked down by the red light emitted by the metal monster over there. Don't be anxious. Get down. Their attack is not that accurate. Follow the tactics and get down. The bearded man took the lead and crawled down on the ground. At this time, the power of example is extremely powerful. The entire village has never experienced such a tense battle, let alone these so-called combat teams, which were just ordinary men who maybe were just ordinary men a few months ago. They were just trained too much by bearded men during training. At this time, they all instinctively listened to orders and crawled down one by one. Even if there were one or two who were not so rational, they were pulled down by their comrades around them. Shoot! Shoot while crawling back. Everyone followed the order, aimed at the metal monsters that were chasing after them, and pulled the triggers desperately. Bang 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 bang. Bang 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 bang. Gunshots continued to ring out in the night sky. The gunshots also changed from being scattered before to becoming more regular. They didn't seem so anxious anymore. These gunshots gave the fleeing crowd in the distance a backbone. They can hear the sound of the combat team training every day. Many people think that the combat team organized haphazardly in this village is not that powerful in combat effectiveness. Although I was able to win by chance against several metal monsters in the past, it was definitely luck. Now fighting against so many metal monster armies, the gunshots could continue to ring out for such a long time without being defeated. Everyone took a high look at this team. But everyone knows that it is impossible for a combat team of more than 50 people to actually win a battle with a metal monster. You must know that there are more than 50 metal monsters on one road, and there are a total of 100, 40, and 50 metal monsters on the 3 roads. Not to mention that the metal monsters themselves are much more powerful than human combatants, even if a one-on-one combat team can defeat them, but the number is much less than that of the metal monsters. It is impossible for them to win this battle. Ah! Sure enough, just when Beard and the others had taken the best countermeasures, a young man at the front of the team was still rushed to the front by a metal monster after pulling the trigger. His body was directly pierced by a red light. All the members of the combat team saw this scene. To be honest, it is impossible for no one to care. However, because there have been actual battles before and many people died, the members of these combat teams still did not panic too much. Hold on. Knock down the ones in front of you first, shouted the bearded man. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 309. In fact, the bullets they used at this time were not ordinary bullets, and Beard and the others had worked hard to get the kind of bullets that were specially designed to fight against metal monsters through some special relationships in the Shanghai market. However, no matter how good the weapon is, it also requires a powerful user, and this kind of bullet has been proved that although it is extremely effective against metal monsters, it only makes the opponent's impossible defense become breakable. If it is not played well, there will be no effect. For a moment, several metal monsters fell to the ground, and puffs of smoke and dust rose up from their bodies. This was because the magnetic shock bombs caused great magnetic shock power on the surface of their bodies, causing the inside to appear short circuit in the line. Facing this kind of bullet, some of the weaknesses of the metal monster's mining machine are exposed. However, when they fell to the ground, 10 members of the combat team died in exchange. Okay, retreat, retreat. The bearded man kept shouting loudly. In fact, when he saw this large metal monster army, he knew that it was impossible to defeat it. However, because there were ordinary people behind who needed protection, the retreat seemed a little slower. Of course, if the war becomes really that corrupt, he won't be polite. After all, he and the young man wearing glasses are killers. It can be said that other people's lives cannot be taken so seriously. If a critical situation occurs that is impossible to reverse, the two of them must have escaped first. Xiao Yao, we can't survive here. I'll lead them to resist first. You go to Uncle Jia's place and take them all to the trail we made secretly. When everyone continued to resist, but casualties still appeared, the bearded man pulled the young man with glasses aside and whispered. These two people don't think too much about others, but after all, they rescued the Jia family from Fujian province, and they seem to secretly believe in that Senior Changwen. It's impossible to disappear like this, they naturally want to continue to maintain this relationship. What's more, the friendship with the Jia family is also very good. They don't want the family that has finally cultivated a relationship to be ruined in this place. The young man wearing glasses nodded immediately without anyone noticing. Retreat toward the rear. The war is still going on. At this time, the small villages are already in chaos. No one believes that those fighting teams can defeat such a large army of metal monsters. After all, if the metal monsters can be defeated if they are so good, then the Earth's human army won't fight so hard. Not only this small village, but also all the small villages around Shanghai, and even small cities that have not yet fallen, the same scene is happening. It seems that all the metal monsters in the entire Chinese land have gathered in this place, and they are all launching a general attack on humans at this time. Their number reached 50,000 in one breath. Most of them are heading towards Shanghai to attack, while others are around Shanghai. Find places similar to small villages and destroy the human gathering points one by one. Chaos continues on the ground, and the tension of the war emerges in every human heart. And this nervous feeling is also emerging in a distant place. It is only 1 million kilometers away from the Earth. There are almost no asteroids and other interstellar materials here, but at this time there is a disk-like aircraft in this space field. Keep accelerating and flying. This is an extremely huge aircraft. The appearance of this aircraft is very similar to the flying saucer that people on Earth talk about. In this aircraft, one seems to be a supergiant mosquito that has been enlarged countless times. I kept thinking about it. Jia Yan is looking at the screen in front of him. In front of the screen, a faint small sphere has appeared there. In fact, 1 million kilometers away, the Earth is still an inconspicuous small sphere, but this aircraft seems to have discovered a terrible obstacle on its route. So a warning is issued. Under normal circumstances, if the driver is sensible, he should avoid the collision as soon as possible. After all, for this aircraft, 1 million kilometers can be reached almost quickly. Even if it wants to land on that planet, it has a special landing auxiliary function, which will now be turned on. However, Jia Yan couldn't understand the so-called Asta language at all, so he couldn't make any actions at this time. He just looked at the distant planet and kept calculating when it would be better to brake and evade. If the speed is reduced too early, the speed at which the aircraft is finally lifted will be weakened. It is not impossible to fly at a distance of hundreds of thousands of kilometers, but it will take a few more days to fly. Okay, this should be the Earth. It won't happen like a few days ago, where it almost landed on Mars. When Jia Yan used the aircraft, he almost missed the Earth, especially when it went back and forth several times between the orbits of Mars and the Earth. It was a similar situation a few days ago. The aircraft showed a dangerous signal on the screen early. Jia Yan thought it was the Earth, but when he got closer, he realized it was Mars. Fortunately, without wasting too much time, we found a huge planet again. Judging from the distant color, it must be the Earth. Okay, if everything goes well, we will be close in about half a day. I wasted at least half a year in the universe. I can't even imagine what the Earth will look like at this time. I hope my family is not in danger. Jia Yan finished his operation and continued to leave the operation pole. He wanted to take advantage of the last time to continue to consolidate his strength. After all, the aircraft may be in a war situation. Brainwave expansion exercise. The purpose of this exercise is to consolidate and become proficient in brainwave power. My brainwave power has been greatly improved according to the above training methods. Jia Yan stood in the open space near the console, where he had piled up the remains of combat machines. Before he could stand still, several of those combat machines suddenly started flying in the air. They made strange movements in the air and seemed to be stagnant and dull. Jia Yan's footsteps landed, and the remains of those combat machines began to rotate around him. There were strange vibrating sounds around Jia Yan's body, but he ignored these sounds and just looked at the combat machine in front of him. Do not misunderstand. At this time, it's not that these machines are resurrected again, they are able to move because of the brainwave power emitted by Jia Yan. That's right, Jia Yan's brainwave power at this time is actually so powerful that he can lift these combat machines into the sky one by one and move them around his body to a terrifying degree. This move is called the brainwave C-control method, which is a powerful way to use brainwave power that can remotely control objects. The remains of the fighting machines were spinning rapidly at this time. Jia Yan looked at their bodies and was extremely focused. At the same time, operating so many combat machines is still a very big burden for him. This requires not only brainwave power, but also a great test for his calculation power and eyesight. After all, he is rotating these objects, and there are no silk threads or other connections on those mechanical bodies. Everything is connected using his brainwave power. If someone is not careful and his brainwave power and vibrating bonds cannot find those rotating machines, then all these machines will be smashed out. However, there are too many spinning objects, and their spinning speed is getting faster and faster. There are always times when your mental strength is too tight. At a certain moment, Jia Yan's mental strength suddenly relaxed. Whoops! The body of a combat machine, like a wild horse, was thrown away from Jia Yan's control. Bang! This combat machine with extremely strong kinetic energy smashed into the metal wall of the aircraft, making a big crater in the solid metal wall. Fortunately, the material of this metal wall is extremely strong. Even if it suffered such a huge damage, it was able to withstand it. The area around the crater created is already covered with similar craters, large and small. If the designer who built this aircraft saw this scene, I wonder if he would be so heartbroken that he would like to cut Jia Yan into 8 pieces. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 310. This volume ends. Next volume, Counterattack, Earth War. Very good. My brainwave power operation ability has been improved to a new level. If Daphne sees it, I wonder if she will be surprised. Jia Yan looked at the scene in front of him with his compound eyes, and when he thought of the woman who gave him the training method, his hatred flashed away. But finding Daphne for revenge is something that will happen later. What he wants to do now is to return to Earth and take a look at his family's situation. If his family's safety cannot be confirmed, he can't do anything thoughtfully. Jia Yan continued his own testing. At this time, he still had a certain amount of time. Judging from the operation process of several months, the inertial buffer of this aircraft required a distance of about 10,000 kilometers in advance, which was enough, so he was completely still more time for your own training. But at this time, my mind is already on the Earth, so the training cannot be so rigorous, so the efficiency is not high. But he didn't stop. It was very useful to conduct necessary tests on himself at this time. After all, he has improved greatly in the past few months, especially in the power of brain waves. If he does not get used to all these powerful powers, it will definitely have a big impact on the foreseeable battles in the future. Impact. It is definitely not a waste of time to master all the powers skillfully and systematically familiarize yourself with the feeling of fighting. Now Jia Yan is like a sword that has been polished for a long time and is about to be unsheathed. His power may surprise those metal monsters and the humans on Earth. The edge of a sword comes from sharpening, and the fragrance of plum blossoms comes from the bitter cold. Jia Yan has gone through hardships that others cannot imagine before he is as strong as he is now. His strength was not obtained in vain. Without those sufferings, he would not be as strong as he is now. The aircraft is still flying, approaching the location of the Earth. On Earth, the war has reached an even more intense level. This is a huge move targeting the Shanghai Stock Exchange, and Metal Monster may not have very strong organizational power. But from another perspective, they don't have much weakness, and they will definitely continue to achieve the combat goals they want to achieve. This is also a very scary thing about Metal Monsters. Fearless, persistence, and no tired thoughts at all. This is just a robot without any thought. It can reach this level. The battle in Shanghai was a one-sided situation almost from the beginning. Although humans had defeated the invading army of Metal Monsters several times. But everyone knows that the troops are currently deployed in Shanghai. It is completely a silver gun wax tip, it can be said that it will collapse at the first touch. Weapons and ammunition cannot keep up, and production and living standards cannot keep up. The army here has long been in a dual crisis of equipment and food. But compared to the general public, the army is pretty good. The people who originally gathered around Shanghai City. As early as the first battle in Shanghai, he had almost completely escaped. These people came to Shanghai to find some hope of survival. As a result, not only was the army here unable to protect them, but they themselves were almost captured by Metal Monsters. Such an army directly made everyone lose confidence. So most of the people left here, and some of the fields that had been planted were once again abandoned. Even the replanted fields were burned clean by the Metal Monsters who came later with the red light. As a result, the entire city's food supply has become in short supply. Only villages like the two killers scattered around Shanghai City, each village raising a little, and the army's own reclamation, can barely maintain the consumption of the huge army. And under such circumstances, the Metal Monsters' attack again obviously made the system, which was already riddled with holes, even weaker. So far, there are still 2 full-strength Category A group armies, 3 compact Category A group armies, and 3 full-strength Category B group armies around Shanghai, with a total strength of 380,000 troops. It seems that the strength is enough, but if you look at the past when we achieved strong results, it will be very different. When the army of Metal Monsters was first resisted, the number of soldiers around Shanghai City reached more than 700,000, and the weapons, equipment, and transportation at that time were in the best condition. The subsequent battles went from bad to worse, and the second time after the battle, there were only more than 500,000 people. After that, Shanghai City expanded its recruitment speed, and the battle continued. At first glance, the number of soldiers is not much different from before, but the actual combat effectiveness and even the equipment are no longer the same level as before. It can be said that what a difference. So when the Metal Monsters attacked this time, under this situation, countless people chose to flee Shanghai, a city that had the strongest resistance to Metal Monsters and was previously rated as the safest city in the world. Even because of the quality of the soldiers, there are more and more deserters. Under such circumstances, the Shanghai Stock Exchange, riddled with holes, faced an army of tens of thousands of invading Metal Monsters. The battle can be said to start in an instant and end in an instant. Boom 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 boom. A huge explosion shook the original city center of Shanghai. There have been no ordinary people here for a long time. The people who are here now are all those young warriors who are full of passion and sacrifice their lives and blood in this place for the sake of the motherland and the people, and to protect their families. This area has long been infiltrated by Metal Monsters. One after another, Metal Monsters are rampaging in this once prosperous place. On this night, which was supposed to be the traditional Chinese New Year's Day, the Metal Monsters chose this moment to launch their final attack on the Shanghai Stock Exchange. Their offensive efficiency has simply become more efficient. Many of the magnetic shock bombs that were once effective for them have lost their effectiveness now. That's right. The Metal Monster is also changing during the protracted war. Perhaps the art of war of the Asta people is also reflected in these so-called mining robots, so these things that are supposed to be mining robots have also become more powerful due to battle after battle, attacking, and the defense has risen to a higher level. Therefore, the casualties of human warriors became extremely huge. Ah! I'll fight you! A familiar young man roared in a corner of this battle. His body was covered in blood, but he still pointed the weapon in his hand at the metal monster that kept attacking and fired bullets. This is a magnetic shock bomb, which originally had a powerful effect on metal monsters, but the metal monster just added a metal panel to its heart. Such a small change has become a huge change that can affect the battle. The effect of magnetic shock bombs is minimal. This young man's face appeared faintly in the dim light. If Jia Yan were in this place, he might find out his identity strangely. He is the young man who helped Jia Yan in Shanghai when the Mosquito was weak. Of course, Jia Yan only used his help in his home for a while. The young man himself may not know what happened at all. His name is Fan Hafei. Find the bookstore. He used to be an ordinary wage earner in the city, working hard for his future. But when the metal monster crisis broke out, this young man living in Shanghai decided to sign up to join the army after being unable to contact his family in the countryside. After experiencing the first battle to defend Shanghai and the second battle to defend Shanghai, the comrades around him changed one after another. He endured the arduous battles again and again, and even became a man with many talents. A young man with first combat experience, he successfully became the squad leader leading a 5-man combat team. But tonight, this night of missing his family, Fan Hafei lost his comrade again. Blood was pouring before his eyes. The days of fighting for more than half a year seemed to be far away. The days when I was busy working in a small decoration company every day, working hard in the city of Shanghai for a salary of more than 5,000 yuan a month, seemed to be still in front of my eyes. Fan Hafei pulled the trigger. The fire flashed and bullets were sprayed out one by one. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 311. A new volume with new atmosphere. Please subscribe to the official version. The metal monster in front of him, I don't know if he hit the vital part just right, tilted his head, and actually stopped moving. Fan Hafei wiped the blood from his face and then sat down against the wall. Surrounded by comrades lying in a pool of blood, they had to pay the price of an entire squad just to fight against 2 metal monsters. Fan Hafei looked at the surrounding scenery and found that the ruin-like community he was in was exactly where the family where he helped others install aluminum alloy windows when he was a decorator. Looking across the way, he saw that the family's house was in a mess. It was not the high-end mansion he remembered at all. Haha, war. Thinking that he had just arrived in Shanghai and when this house was being renovated, he still swore in his heart that he would work hard to build such a house in Shanghai in his lifetime. The corners of Fan Hafei's mouth twisted into a wry smile involuntarily. This smile looks like a smile but not a smile, like a cry but not a cry. How ugly it is. How he wished that when he opened his eyes, it would be as if everything had never happened, and he could suddenly return to the moment more than half a year ago. At that time, he would talk to his family one night every week, and he would play games on the computer every day, regardless of day. The carefree days are gone forever. If I can go back, I will definitely promise my family to go back to work in the county. Let alone 4,000, I will definitely go back even if I pay a small amount. Fan Hafei's fingers shook, and he found that his arm was also covered in blood, and he couldn't even hold the gun tightly. This arm was originally meant for holding decoration tools, not a gun. He sighed, and without any doubt, threw the weapon in his hand, which had no ammunition at all, to the ground. Click. 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 A series of slight sounds appeared slowly in the black night scene. Behind these voices, it's a metal monster that can only be described as ferocious. Their bodies. Approaching, approaching this young man who has no strength at all because of the battle, approaching this young man who has no strength because of the war. A man who transformed from an ordinary worker to a warrior. Fan Hafei glanced at the approaching metal monsters. He grinned again. Free and easy is his current mood. In half a year, he has already surpassed his former comrades. Lived a lot longer. And his family can't be contacted, but he is still alive. It feels boring. Kaka. The young man took out a lighter and cigarettes from his pocket. Although there are strict orders in the army, ordinary soldiers can always find a way. Keep cigarettes with you. A little burning flame lights the cigarette. Red light spots. In this dark alley, a bright light. Fan Hafei took a drag on the cigarette, just like he did more than half a year ago. Wearing work clothes, I took a puff of a cigarette in the same place. The difference was that there was no threat of metal monsters at that time, and his family could still contact him. Although he didn't know each of his comrades, he would rather not know them than see them die. The metal monsters are approaching even faster. Not long after, in the darkness, red gun barrels surrounded the young warrior. Less than 2 meters away, there was a circle surrounded by 5 metal monsters. It seemed that they knew that this young warrior was very weak at this time, so they approached him. Maybe you want to get close and kill this young human warrior. Fan Hafei looked at the approaching metal monsters with thin eyelids. There is an option to resurrect in the game. I wonder if this option is also available in reality. Do you think so? Fan Hafei had a cigarette butt in his mouth and his eyes were full of strange looks. His hands have been grasped together, and a grenade is between his palms. As long as the pull ring is pulled away, a violent explosion will occur. It may not be able to kill the metal monsters, but it can at least cause some damage to them. What Fan Hafei is doing is the same as countless exhausted warriors with no fighting ability at this time. He had also witnessed his comrades make this move several times. At that time, he was close at hand, but could not save those comrades. And now, it's his turn. Click. The barrel of the gun on the top of the metal monster's head will emit red light. And the pull ring that Fan Hafei pulled was almost pulled out. Life and death, at this moment. Buzz 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 buzz. Whoosh 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 whoosh. A huge shadow, like a super meteorite falling from the sky, crashed down from the sky with a flash of fire. His body is so huge. His body is so arrogant. His spread wings seem to be able to cover the sky and the earth. His extended legs seem to be able to destroy anything in the world. His mouth parts, which are like huge syringes, seem to be able to poke a basket out of the sky. His body is dark, as if he is the emperor who controls the blackness of the night, coming and going in this night. This is a super huge flying monster. He is too big, too big. The monster, which is 10 meters long, spreads its wings and directly covers a radius of 20 meters. It's like a house flying in the sky. This super huge monster seemed to fall from the sky. His body also contains a mass of flames caused by friction with the atmosphere. It was like the meteorite falling with great force. Boom 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 boom. The super huge giant mosquito monster wiped the battlefield, with a cloud of black smoke in the firelight, passing quickly. This. Fan Hafei was about to pull the grenade ring, his eyes almost popped out. What a monster is this? Giant mosquito? Are you kidding me? The largest giant mosquito monster found on the earth before was only a 6-meter-long guy. It is not on the same level as the supergiant mosquito that scuttles down from the sky and causes friction with the air, almost lighting up the entire war zone. There seems to be not much difference between 6 meters and 10 meters, but in fact, there is simply too much difference. If it weren't for the obviously similar appearance, no one would believe that this would be another giant mosquito monster. Too big. The impact is too great. Boom 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 boom. The body of the giant mosquito, still filled with fire, flew towards the sky. He flapped his wings, and most of the fireballs he carried dissipated in one go. Another shot and all the firelight disappeared. The entire world, the exploding fire, disappeared. It was like a string of meteors flying by, leaving behind proof of their existence in the sky, and then disappearing again. But the flying arrogant voice still did not disappear, but at this time, it became even louder. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The sound quickly faded away, as if this extremely huge monster had flown far away. But the impact he caused was far more than that. At this time, in the Shanghai city, where the temporary war command post was located, a young liaison officer looked happy, as if he had heard some good information. The one who caused the noise just now was actually a giant mosquito monster that we have never seen before. According to satellite detection, he came down from the sky. Space. This. But no matter where he comes from. The giant mosquito race has not shown up for a long time, but they have never had such a good relationship with the metal monsters. No matter what, the appearance of a giant mosquito must be a good thing for us. In the command post, everyone had an inexplicable expectation for the supergiant giant mosquito monster. At this time, it doesn't matter whether his giant mosquito is from an alien planet, as long as he helps them attack those metal monsters, even if the giant mosquito says that he comes from the Ultraman planet, or that he is God, they will not care. Being able to defeat the metal monster and survive is everyone's only thought. The key is that Ultraman and God will not come to save them at this time. And just when the flames burning in the sky disappeared, the giant mosquitoes in them seemed to disappear into the night. The metal monsters in front of Fan Hafei suddenly started to move. It's the 8th volume, Bulletin. You could not have imagined that with such poor results. He actually insisted on writing until the 8th volume. Please support Bulletin you who can't even afford steamed buns with his subscription results. The genuine subscription means that Bulletin you insists on writing motivation to continue. Thank you.